The number is 800-8949-800-8949. And do call me if you have something you'd like to talk about. If you have a problem you would like others to consider, or if you would like me to consider your problem, do ring me at that number. That is our studio line. As we hear all day here at Nuga Radio 92.7 and 95.3 FM HD4, as we hear all day, you hear Sean Hannity in the afternoon, 3 to 6. And then after a good night's sleep, you call the doctor, Dr. Toulis, and he will be the one to provide possibly a remedy for what ails. And often we are in distress because of our ideas. Our ideas are noxious. They have a bit of bile in them. And so what we need to do is we need to cleanse them. We need to have a little bit of organic thought processes to countervail that. And then we expel said bad idea in the normal digestive processes, and our organs are thereafter cleansed and stronger and maybe a little younger, and we are better off for that. We are organic. I do believe in various range-free remedies. It is David Toulis, and I'm your host here, the blogger, as they say, the blogger with the biggest pen in Chattanooga. And let's make it the best pen. Okay, let's make it the best pen. Keep me posted about your doings. And you can do that by going to Nuganomics.com, our secondary sponsor, and letting me know. You can send me an email through Nuganomics.com. Make sure your number is attached, and I will be glad to call you. And caller, this is David Toulis. What's on your mind?
Hey, Dave, Mike Steele.
Hey, Mike.
I wanted to corroborate what you're saying. Because I think, like you said, to most people, this flies in the face of common sense, doesn't it?
What does?
But do you mind if I give me some latitude and I can corroborate what you're saying?
Go right ahead.
At about 20 years old, and I'm 60 now, so 40 years ago, I decided to challenge the issue that you're talking about. But let me tell you one of the problems we're dealing with. The occupiers, I call them the occupiers. That's anyone elected and or hired to oversee and perpetuate the growth of the fascist, Marxist, socialist, communist welfare state, from the dog catcher to the president, that doesn't obey their oath of office in the Constitution. I call them occupiers. They've been there since Lincoln.
I call them the good people, Mike. But
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, the occupiers of our republic don't allow important cases to get in as what they call law, or to make law. This is court decisions. They only allow the decisions they want in, because lawyers don't study law. What they do is they're trained to understand statute and stare decisis or stare decisis, which is once decided, always decided. Or they look at prior court cases. I don't think a lawyer could argue the law if his life depended on it. They depend on other cases. So issues like this never really get before the courts. Now, they did in the 20s and 30s. But here's their game. Here's what they do, because I've been directly involved in this. I was tired of debating my dad on how unfree we are, because when we're told we're free, and I discovered at a very young age that's a lie. You can't have rules and be free. And we had an argument over a driver's license. I said, how can you tell me that's a privilege when I can't go to work without my means of transportation? And that got me looking into it. So at the age of 20, I've determined what gives one person authority over another. And you know what that is, David?
Consent.
You.
Oh, is that right?
Consent. We give people authority over us. So how do we stop doing that? Well, the Amish do it. Let me tell you, and I'll prove to you, because I won. I got rid of my driver's license, my registration, my insurance. I did a junk title, and I drove on the road without a plate for the purpose of getting pulled over and cited or possibly arrested, because I wanted to test this legal theory of what the Supreme Court had said in the 20s and 30s. So, of course, they cited me, and we get into court, and the first thing I ask is, where is your jurisdiction to charge me under the vehicle code, because I don't have a license? Well, you want to talk about hitting the fan. We never even got through really discovery and the evidentiary proceedings. But they found me guilty, and on appeal, they refused to prosecute. So it never gets on the record, and this is what the occupiers do. In cases like this, or if you argue the money issue or checkpoints, They drop the case because they don't want the appellate court to make a decision, or the Supreme Court, because then that will be used against them. They do it over and over again. I beg them to prosecute me. They wouldn't do it. I give examples of checkpoint cases where I argued the money issue case, where the state said they're only required to receive gold, silver, paper, redeemable in gold or silver. They dropped, and basically they denied me appeal to the Supreme Court. They do it over and over and over. Or if they give you an appeal, they lie about what your argument is, because they can change the record. I want everybody to know this. The judge can change the official record. That's why you're not allowed to record in court, because they want to have the only record. And then when you appeal from the record. So the appellate court gets to see how they're lying about you in a political case. So the point being is, you can't have liberty and slavery at the same time. If you're obligated or required to do something, you're a slave. So I have no problem with that, as long as everyone admits they're a slave. But don't tell me you're free when you're obligated to do something.
Mike,
because
let me ask you a question.
My question becomes, what can you do without permission?
Let me ask you a question, Mike. I appreciate what you're saying.
Go to the bathroom, Dave? What can you do?
Okay. Well, all right. We'll let the other listener on my show, Mike, consider that question. But let me ask you about my theory about local resistance and local resolve. In the travel case where O'Mariel Woods faces a trial this afternoon before Judge Chris Helton in City Court in East Ridge, the High Court, the General Assembly, and the Governor's Office, Bill Haslam, are unified in their pretense, in their holding to what I call a legal fiction. And they say, the High Court especially, say that there is no constitutional right of travel. The only right of travel that you have is changing of domicile. That's what travel has been narrowed to mean. Otherwise, using your car to get to a wedding, go to a political meeting, go to voting, go to church, take care of a sick relative by getting from point A to point B, that is not travel. That has to be, they're pretending, under transportation, under license, and under state permission.
Right. This is what communist Russia did.
But let me finish.
This is what occupiers do,
right.
Communists
do. Let me finish my question.
They changed the meaning of words,
right,
in order to obtain their political goals, and they're wrong.
Listen, okay, here's the question, Mike Steele. All right, we know that in Nashville and in Washington, there's the status quo, you might say the white political legal establishment, the status quo. Can we change this? Can we change things locally by somehow getting local jurisdictions to reject what's sort of in concrete, reject this pretense that all travel has to be under transportation and under permission?
You know me well.
Can we do that?
No, I don't like collectivism. I don't like groups, organizations, or writing letters to affect change.
Well, can we make
power
changes?
Resides within the individual to grow some gonads and say no.
Okay.
Where is your authority? Where is your jurisdiction? Jurisdiction should always be challenged. By what authority are you doing this? And then they'll throw up some city rule, regulation, or statute that really is not applicable. And then you go from there. If everyone were to say, listen, I am not filing your paperwork today, 200 million Americans, it would end. I am not going to give information at checkpoints. It's none of your damn business where I'm going. And if you believe that I need to have a driver's license, prove it. Show me the authority. But remember, you have to stand there as a legal person. You have to show your status as a free man. You can't be encumbered. You can't come to the court with dirty hands. I'm giving you my opinion. But your status has to be set properly.
Well, I'm going to argue that maybe it doesn't. For example, O'Mariel Woods, the man who's facing Judge Chris Helton today, Mike, he may have a Social Security number. He was in a car that had a tag on it because he was stopped for no tag light.
Yeah, that's a different case, David, because that's a whole different case, because they gave him a license that he didn't want, and then they suspended it.
Then they revoked it. Right. Then they charged him with a crime.
His authorization was not there to give him something that he didn't apply for.
Right.
That was blatantly illegal. That's criminal, actually. Making that application was criminal. I would, if I were him, I would, whoever made that application, I'd sue them.
That was done under the authority of David Perkey, the Commissioner of Safety and Homeland Security, Mike.
Okay, well then during discovery, I would ask him to come to my trial because I want to question him, and I have a right to face my accuser because this is a criminal case.
It is.
If you get a parking ticket, it's a criminal case. Anytime it's the state against you, it's criminal. So I would demand during the evidentiary hearing and based on the rules of court that individual stand in front of me or sit in front of me and show me the authorization to issue that without my signature and then suspend me. That is a crime. That's a felony.
Yeah, because what you've done is you've made someone liable for a criminal charge who did nothing of his own accord. He didn't write his name on the form, didn't pay the fee to get the license in the first place that you, the commissioner, have revoked. I mean, how
so this is no longer about
Alice in Wonderland is
this
that?
This is about fraud. I told that to a judge one time. You know, when they were trying to get me to pay a head tax, where the law required them to receive gold, silver, redeemable currency, and there's a reason for that. People have to understand, when we have a hard money system, government is limited as to what they can do. The founders wanted to limit their power. This is a country of limited powers, not omnipotent powers. But in that, I told the judge, I'll pay whatever you want me to pay in. But understand this, Your Honor. If you compel me to pay this and anything that's other than what's required by Pennsylvania law, you in essence are compelling me to conspire with you to violate the law. And in this instance, it's a felony. But I'll do whatever you want me to do. And guess what? He didn't compel me to do it. So this is where you have to be a belligerent claimant in person. You know, the founders said that we're one generation away from slavery, and that this republic will only last with an educated citizenry. And if we go back to the Bible, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And that's why I love Nuga Radio, because we're imparting this knowledge, and it infuriates people. It infuriates the police. It infuriates the mayor. It infuriates city. And we're shaking everybody up because they don't want to see the truth. They want the status quo. The truth hurts them. It hurts their pocketbook. It hurts their ability to control people.
It cuts inflow on arrestees into the jail, Mike.
And I can tell you this: there's one radio station in this market that stands for the individual, and that's Nuga Radio. Your radio station stands for the individual, as we saw in the Melvin case, as we saw with the Gaddies. That this station is not in the pocket of any political organization or government. This station stands in direct relationship to the people of Chattanooga and Hamilton County. So thank you for your work, David.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your call. We want to get now to the question that I was promising my YouTube viewer and my Facebook viewer, and that is the question of blight. We are asking the right questions, I think, and we want to ask them on your behalf. You're my listeners' behalf, especially of late. If you're in East Ridge has an exciting program ahead of economic redevelopment, but it's being done in a way that Dick Cook, the editor at East Ridge News Online, worries about. He thinks that possibly there are private parties who seek to profit from the shifting and designation in the law. I've just started looking at this part of the Tennessee Code, so I'm not well versed on it. It's Title 13, chapters 20 and 21 that deal with the question of blighted areas. And I just want you to know, especially if you're in East Ridge, that facing the possibility that your house, that's not the greatest house in the world, may be considered that it does fall under the provisions of the blight statute in one way or the other. Either it falls under it or it is excluded by the statute. Okay, so let's just say that you, my listener, have a house, and Tennessee Code deals with the condition of your house. Okay, it deals with your condition. And the dealing of that condition of your house is in the blight definitions, the statute's definitions of blight. So either you're in that definition or you're not in that definition. Okay, so let's get it clear here. You, my listener, have a house somewhere in Tennessee, somewhere in Chattanooga, maybe somewhere in East Ridge, and those letters that went out, as Dick Cook has been reporting at EastRidgeNewsOnline.com. Letters went out to a couple thousand people, and he was told by an attorney involved in it that it went actually to 5,300 parties, owners and renters. It's the East Ridge Redevelopment Plan is the name of the project, and it comes from a newly formed East Ridge Housing and Redevelopment Authority. It's ERHRA, which has a map. And now, so whether you're in East Ridge or elsewhere, your house falls into the scope of the statute, okay? And it does it in either one of two ways. Either it's in the statute as under the definition of blight, or it's not. So let me just tell you what it says. And because we were talking here about police power, And police power is widely abused today, widely abused. And if you want to know, in the biggest area that affects tens of thousands of people in the Chattanooga area, I'm going to say tens of thousands in the Chattanooga area, tens of thousands. That might on the highest level, because I know there are about 150,000 people across the state, according to federal judge Alita Trauger in her memorandum on this problem, who have had their driver's licenses revoked. It's a civil death sentence, okay? A civil death sentence from which there's hardly any appeal. A death sentence on common poor people, immigrants, minorities, orphans, widows, and the ignorant. Okay, they're under a civil death sentence. For what? For not paying court fees and costs and fines. So there is a widespread abuse of police authority under Title 55. Here now we're in another statute. We're under Title 13, and it is the, for example, there's a provision regarding. Let's see. It's okay. How do you find when someone's fitting the blight statute? There exist in many municipalities and counties blighted and deteriorated properties and neighborhoods, which cause the deterioration of those and contiguous neighborhoods and constitute a serious and growing menace, which is injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the residents of Tennessee, and are beyond remedy. Okay, got that? It's beyond remedy. It's 800-8949. David Toulis, 800-8949. That's 800-8949. And control solely by regulatory process in the exercise of the police power. The existence of blighted and deteriorated properties, both residential and commercial, within neighborhoods, and the growth and spread of blight and deterioration, or the threatened deterioration of other neighborhoods and properties. Now, here's the finding. Okay, if you have a kind of a rundown neighborhood, poor area, it contributes substantially and increasingly to the spread of disease and crime. Wow, crime, and to losses by fire and accident. And then it goes on to say that, well, then you have the expensive and disproportionate expenditures of public funds for the preservation of the public health and safety, for crime prevention, correction, prosecution, and punishment. So, in other words, the whole court system is fed all these people because we have blight. Okay, that's kind of what the argument is being made here in the statute in Title 1321-201. The problem is it can't be dealt with, right? It can't be dealt with by private enterprise without the aids provided herein, right? We're going to help out. The benefits which would result from eliminating the blighted properties that cause the blight and deterioration of neighborhoods will accrue to the inhabitants in which these conditions exist, and to the inhabitants of the state generally. So because there is blight and we control it by these authorities, right? These development and redevelopment authorities like that newly created in East Ridge, we can make the public more moral and safer and healthier. We can fight crime. It is a crime fighting function for a city and a housing authority to demolish houses that are privately owned and occupied. See, it can be very dramatic. These can be dramatic assertions and exertions of power in local economy and in the free market, right? Free market, right? Do we not care about the free market? Well, I know we do. And this is David Toulis, because I defend the free market. And I want you to care about the free market and liberty, because in liberty, we will have more prosperity. And liberty is always grace, right? It's always grace. And the chief exemplar of grace is Jesus Christ, who doesn't just offer himself as an example. Of course, he actually saves his people from their sins. He saves his people by election, by unmerited grace and favor from their sins, and saves them in this life and in the next life. It is hereby stated that it is the policy of the state of Tennessee to protect and promote the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the state, blah, 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 by eliminating the blight and deterioration of neighborhoods through the elimination of blighted and deteriorated properties within these neighborhoods. This now is the authority that the East Ridge Redevelopment, the East Ridge Housing and Redevelopment Authority will be exercising. And if you go to East Ridge News Online, even if you're not from there, just go there to that website. And one of the very top files is the map Dick Cook, inveterate journalist, has put the map up about the site. You can see the details. You can probably see your own lot there if you are in East Ridge. And here now in my next printout, that was 1321. Now here, go back a step or two, back to 1320. What are the powers of a housing authority as to blighted areas? Well, here's how this works. A housing authority established under this chapter can acquire blighted areas. It can acquire other real property for the purpose of removing, preventing, or reducing blighting factors, or the causes of blight. What does that mean? Well, that's very vague. It's amazingly and wonderfully vague, and that's why it's there. Okay, it's a power that arises from vague causes. You can acquire real property with the condition of the title, the diverse ownership of the real property to be assembled, the street or lot layouts or other conditions prevent a proper development of the property, and where the acquisition of the area by the authority is necessary to carry out a redevelopment plan. This is David Toulis, and we are at 800-8949. That's 800-8949. So there's more to this statute. It goes on in a lot of gray type for another couple of pages, and that is the authority of housing authorities, like the new one in East Ridge. I haven't digested this, but I'm one who I don't just go at statutes with straws. I go at them with my mouth wide open and the cup tipped up. Take in great lumps of statute in one or two swallows, and savor. I swallow before I swallow. I savor and taste the delectable language of the General Assembly, and try to distill in a spitwad what you need to know. Right, the kernel in the law is what I find, and I believe that these lines of type from the General Assembly and enacted pursuant to these statutes by city councils are always with a serif type, right? That's to say Palatino and Times Roman type. I like Helvetica type myself, which is neutral. It doesn't have serifs. It doesn't have the little blades that do all the cutting that compulsory words do, but are really just voluntary. They're free. Geneva type is like that. Helvetica type is the sans serif type, very easy to read. Letters and I like that kind of type, and I do that because I think we should have a voluntary society rather than a compulsory society. Fallen man does not agree. Fallen man, with his humanism and his progressivism, wants compulsion at every step to make the society good and true, to bring about the blessings of prosperity, to make men good by forcing them into submission, into prisons, into jails, into courts, into programs, into state welfare. That is how we make men good. We put them into public schools, right? We take their children from them and teach them our way of living, our good and honorable way. We, the good people, have your children all day for hour after hour after hour to teach them what not to see, to teach them that the way things are, in fact, are normative. And that there should not be any resistance, but we should all work adventurously and cooperatively in the system as it is. Schooling is, after all, a marketing for the way things are, the status quo. And this is David Toulis dissenting.
3, 2, 1.